Hey, welcome to Film Fanatics. My name is Dan.
My name is Justin.
And I'm Joe.
Now this week we've got the latest adventure in the Star Wars saga called Rogue One. Will Smith has a breakdown in Collateral Beauty, and awards hopeful Manchester by the Sea will be talked about. Now Joe missed out on two of our three movies this week.
Sadly.
So he is going to really let us hear about Star Wars Rogue One. Rogue One, a Star Wars story, I should say.
Oh, yeah. Okay, sure.
So let's hear
That's
it.
fair. I mean,
Yeah.
that is fair.
Indeed.
All right, well, Star Wars...
Star Wars?
How apt.
Manchester by the Sea all over again.
How apt, actually. Star was. Yes, let's go there. Okay? Yes. All right, first of all, I'm just going to say this. Most of you people that are listening have probably seen Rogue One already. Some of you maybe multiple times because you're diehard Star Wars fans, and that's perfectly fine. Gotta love your franchise. Sometimes blindly. But, you know, normally...
There's a pun in there somewhere. Blind man in the movie.
Donnie Yen. Yeah. Yes. Basically, Rogue One, Star Wars story, is a Star Wars prequel. It takes place rather right before New Hope and follows the plans to construct the Death Star and the Rebellion's attempt to get those plans back. And it follows Jyn Erso, who is... What's her name?
Felicity Jones.
Felicity Jones.
Yeah, Inferno. Hawking's wife.
Hawking's
Yeah.
wife. Hawking's wife. And this basically, she was raised by some Imperial scientists who constructed the Death Star plans, which also kind of goes against Star Wars canon, but that's a whole other story. Little contradictory there, not important, but he's abducted. Parents, of course, the mother, classic Disney fashion, gets killed. She's raised and kind of gets... Well, raised by Forrest Whitaker as a crazy, hardcore rebellion fighter, and has to go back to see him, and a bunch of other characters join her on the way, most notably Alan Tudyk playing a robot, and you've got Donnie Yen as a Force-sensitive monk, among other characters. And, yeah, that's pretty much the story. It's about them trying to get the Death Star plans, and I'll say this. In terms of some of the visual effects, which is kind of, in many ways, Star Wars bread and butter. I think just not only some of the fantastic CGI work, which for the most part looks great. I mean, I learned today Alan Tudyk was pretty much mostly comprised with CGI there around it, even though he was in full motion.
I didn't actually know that was him, so somebody told me today.
Yeah, and also I think a great character, actually. My favorite in the movie, actually. A lot of funny lines, surprisingly. And, some of a lot of the little fan service elements of little cameos from The New Hope and other things. Most notably, you've got Grand Moff Tarkin with Peter Cushing being brought back, combined with a similar actor, modified through CGI to look like Grand Moff Tarkin was awesome. And there are some really fun fan moments involving visuals that I won't spoil, and certain big characters, most notably Darth Vader, make an appearance and show how gripping they are in some of my favorite scenes of the movie. But do visual effects and some strong fan love make up for virtually no plot and even less character development? I'm sorry. I can't say they do. And I know I'm in the minority here because Rotten Tomatoes, 85%, better than Force Awakens. better than Force Awakens.
That makes your brain hurt.
And I will do you one better, sir. Best Star Wars movie so far I have seen all over Facebook.
That's generous.
Wow.
That's very generous.
And this is not an exaggeration. I think that with the Star Wars fan train moving strong after Force Awakens, I can understand that. But these characters are so one-dimensional and flatly acted, for the most part, that it just doesn't really keep me interested. There are moments where things are going to happen to these characters. The biggest excuse I've heard about this is you don't have to develop your characters if they're if they're going to die. In what movie has that ever made sense? So if you don't care about a character, then if they die, you're not going to care about them as much. But somehow, because this is Star Wars, that's an excuse. I don't understand that. But like I said, I think that people are looking at the high points, which are good, but they're sprinkled throughout. The main meat of the story with the character development, the interactions, and the backstory, there's hints of good things there. There are hints of good performances there. But these characters are flat, they're one-dimensional, and for the most part, you don't care about them. You care about how it kind of leads into the main mythology, which are everyone's favorite moments in the movie when you see, just as an example, I had more investment in the Rebel fighter pilots and their battle with their little bit of screen time and their chemistry than I did with the supposed main characters and main story of this movie. And I mean, I know that I'm not alone in this, so it's just like I'm glad people liked it, and I'm not gonna say that it was totally negative for me, but better than Force Awakens, best Star Wars movie ever.
I'll be honest. The latter, I think, is a little bit more crazy.
Well, hey.
Well, obviously.
Yeah.
Just saying it's better than Force Awakens is a little bit weird, but to say it's the best Star Wars movie ever is ridiculous.
I will give it my points for trying to show kind of a darker, dare I say, more realistic approach to the war aspect of Star Wars, but the magic was just not there. It was sporadic for me. But hey, you guys have very different perspectives on Star Wars than I do, so I'm curious to hear what you guys had to say.
Well, I am, the Star Wars, I don't want to say novice, but I just don't, I don't care about Star Wars. I have enjoyed some of the films. I have certainly enjoyed many of the characters, whether they be in the films or their, guest appearances on Sesame Street, when I was 5.
There you go.
Whatever. So, it's not that I dislike Star Wars necessarily. I dislike the fandom. But I don't care either way. Would I have seen this movie this weekend, opening night, if we weren't doing a podcast? No. Would I have seen the movie at all if we weren't doing the podcast? I don't know. So, I fall in the the real minority here.
Not really caring too much about
you might be in the minority of not liking this movie, but I just don't care about Star Wars. Now, that being said, I did like The Force Awakens.
Okay.
I thought The Force Awakens was a good movie. I believe I gave it a B or a B plus on this very show.
I liked it too. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought it had a lot of things that people know and love about Star Wars. But it also had Kylo Ren, who is very one-dimensional, as you mentioned about some of these characters. This movie is a far cry from Force Awakens. Now, I don't typically like Hawking's wife. I thought she was all right here. I thought I would like her less, certainly. I thought she did okay. Forrest Whitaker, I could understand his lines at least. He wasn't in mumbling Whitaker mode. But
weird voice again, though.
But weird voice again.
They justified it a little bit.
Yeah, that's true.
The robot and the blind man...
Everyone's favorites.
Hold the movie together. Really. Look, I get it. You gotta have a cute robot to be in Star Wars. Maybe my all-time favorite character is R2-D2, and then of course you had BB-8 in The Force Awakens, which is very cute. This robot is awesome.
And you also gotta have a Jedi-esque character.
You gotta have a Jedi-esque character, so here we are, blind man.
It's true.
That's fine. The middle, 45 minutes to an hour of this movie is so boring. Now, the battle at the end is great. The Darth Vader scenes, great. The intro, I enjoyed. And you're right, the special effects are, look. This is what these films are known for, maybe almost
it's top-notch.
Above all else.
Top-notch.
Top-notch. So... for all of that, I can give it a very, very marginal positive grade. But I will never watch it again. I just have no interest.
I would probably have to agree with you.
Maybe a couple of scenes here and there on
I'd watch those Darth Vader scenes again, maybe, but
yeah.
I don't know.
All right, so Justin, what did you think?
Maybe Justin will be the saving grace.
Well, I've got a little bit of a different take on this one.
Yeah, please.
So, for Rogue One, which is an anthology movie trying to expand the lesser-known aspects of the universe, it really comes down to the details. And really, I think with Rogue One, that's the star of the show. We often, in regards to other franchises, have explored, prequels and other aspects like that will include technology that's so far beyond. This one feels like it really is between Episode 3 and Episode 4. The statement that I've heard many a time is this is basically Episode 3.5. And I think it's appropriate. Nothing feels too terribly advanced. Nothing feels super rudimentary. And it works in that regard. I think the intricacies are good. Some of the aspects of, the most minute details about the Death Star, about the uniforms that are being worn, spot on.
True.
Ridiculously elaborate, and major props to Gareth Edwards on that one.
He's stating facts.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're opinions, but, I mean, yeah, I would agree with them.
Detailed would be pretty accurate,
I mean, it's definitely detailed.
Attention to detail, I think, is true.
The effects and the art coordination are top-notch in this film.
Definitely.
No argument here.
And alongside that, this is really the first time in 7 movies that I can honestly say Star Wars feels like, well, an actual legitimate war film.
There you go.
Is it the best war film I've ever seen? Not even remotely. But is it actually like a war film where we feel like there's actual like death involved and battles? Oh my gosh, yes, and thank goodness it's finally come. Now comes the negative side of things. The entire Rogue One team is either wholly unlikable, and by wholly unlikable I mean one of the characters who's like supposed to be sort of the mentor to Jyn Erso straight up murders a man less than 10 minutes into the movie.
Never explained
for
about
literally
that.
no reason. Yeah. And you can tell they're trying to do the like Han shot first kind of thing. There is no justification for what he did. And I was hoping seeing it a second time would give me like some sort of context to that. No, this character is evil, to put it politely.
I think they're trying to go for, gray and the black and white.
Yeah, they're trying to like show, okay, the rebellion did bad things too. But there's so many better ways to do that.
Yeah, it didn't really explain that at all.
This ridiculous scene.
Hated that guy.
Yeah. It doesn't even qualify as a mercy killing. It's just straight up murder.
No, he just is like, I'm going to save myself without giving this guy a chance, and straight up murders him, even though we helped him.
Yeah.
That was not
No.
a guy that I liked the rest of the movie.
No, I thought he was going to be my favorite character, and then by the end of the movie, he was like all the way at the bottom. Then you got the Alan Tudyk character, who by virtue of Alan Tudyk is amazing.
Of course.
That is true. I mean, the guy never... yeah, that's a fact.
That's a fact. He's always amazing.
By virtue of Alan Tudyk.
He is great.
Has zero character development, but is fun to watch.
He has some good lines.
Yeah.
He does have some good lines.
He spices things up.
He arguably has the closest thing resembling an actual arc in this movie.
Yeah.
The biggest problem for me in the case of being one-dimensional is there are a bunch of moments that are supposed to hold weight and are supposed to be really interesting. The problem is the movie never lets the characters earn those moments. To illustrate this, an example. When we meet Jyn Erso at the start of the film, extremely cynical, extremely pessimistic, and as the tagline indicates, rebellions are built on hope. Mm-hmm. And it's no real big surprise to say, okay, Jyn sort of has a transformation in regards to that. To the point that by the end of it, she's giving the like big hoorah, let's go fight speech.
Oh, is that well done, Justin?
It's forced, and as I mentioned, that moment is not earned.
Nope.
So, yeah, it's great that like she's finally believing in the rebellion and yay. But
yeah.
It doesn't feel like we've seen her get there.
No.
Like there were moments that should have led up to that were needed and had to come into place.
They're missing.
But alongside that, we also have characters that are one-dimensional, and I think the general storyline fits within the context. Is it the greatest Star Wars story ever? Absolutely not. I also don't think it's trying to be. It's trying to be a war/heist movie, and it fits within that regard. And honestly, the final battle scene is some of the best stuff that Star Wars has ever had. If the rest of the movie was like that, that makes me really wonder what this movie was like before the reshoots came into play.
Mm-hmm.
What all did they reshoot, do you know?
No one's ever consistently said what it was. Some have said they tried to lighten it up. Some have said they were trying to expand on some things.
The general consensus, it seems to be, is that they were going to try to make it much darker, but Disney was like, let's keep it more like Force Awakens and not as dark, so it's more kid-friendly.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I had to take a guess, it was more stuff with Alan Tudyk, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
Had more of him in there. It would have been very grim without him, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, that is very true, yeah.
But I mean, I do appreciate the details. I think Felicity Jones is working with what she's got. I think one of the biggest things is just Gareth Edwards doesn't know how to do a mainstream movie. He's got a good idea on how to do quiet moments with characters with something much more grounded like monsters, which I know you really love, Joe.
I love monsters, absolutely. Godzilla, though.
Godzilla, not exactly the best for character development. Rogue One, probably even less so, arguably.
Ironically, it's like when there's bigger action set pieces, his best thing, which is human stuff, he has a harder time focusing on.
Yeah, I mean, I think he has a good sense of action, but I think when there's too much going on, he gets lost in it.
It's like, and he's weird. You know that he can. That's the best thing about monsters is that, yeah, it's really weird. It's really
I think
weird.
he needs more like grounded B-level projects before tackling something like Rogue
It's a little
One.
too big. This is too big for him.
Well, yeah, I mean, to give somebody, what may end up being the highest grossing film of the year on maybe not much of a background in that type of movie is a risk, for sure.
So, I mean, whether or not it's the cast, whether or not it's the script, whether or not it's the director, you can play the blame game. And honestly, that you can maybe even go with all of the above. Personally, I just say script needed some work, and Edwards needed to commit a bit more to the script.
Yeah.
Whether or not you can also throw the Disney execs in there, I mean, I'd say jury's still out until we actually realize what they actually reshot.
True.
For me, I think it's a good movie, but it could have been great. I think it really could have been one of the best Star Wars movies,
Definitely.
but just is an opportunity completely squandered with really unlikable characters and a super tedious second act.
I mean, like, so boring. I mean, you could have trimmed that by a lot and not lost any of the story because, like you said,
There's much there.
you both kind of mentioned, these characters are flat anyway, so it's like, it's not like it's part of an arc. Like, just cut out a half hour of it and you literally won't miss anything.
Sad, but very
Maybe
true.
a joke or two from Tudyk, but
You can put that
Sadly.
somewhere else.
other than that, you put that in a different area. So, all right, well, Joe, I'm real interested in your grade for Rogue One.
Well, look, Justin pointed out that last scene is the best Star Wars visuals ever,
Do you agree with that statement?
I'm waiting for the butt.
Yeah.
which is probably pretty accurate. There's
Okay.
some truly great moments, which is why I very, very tediously raised my grade up
Oh my God.
to a B minus.
Wow.
Okay.
And it's on the line.
Okay.
Okay, might go back to a C plus.
Well,
I can accept that.
Because I'm
That's
like,
fine.
you're right, man. Those scenes were glorious.
well, I already thought they were glorious, so my original grade remains a B minus.
All right.
And I'm going to stick with my B.
Okay. All right. Well, up next is Collateral Beauty, and in this, Will Smith plays a New York businessman who loses his child, and even years later has withdrawn from his friends, family, and business until his associates hatch a plan they think will solve matters, inspired by him writing letters to the concepts of time, death, and love. Kate Winslet, Edward Norton, and Michael Pena star as his business associates, and Helen Mirren, Keira Knightley, and Jacob Lattimore also star. Now, the movie starts out with a very intriguing idea, and from there has exactly no idea what to do with it. I sort of feared that this trailer, which seemed so uplifting and like, it was a very interesting concept. I, in fact, mentioned to Justin just a couple days before I watched it that it reminded me of the incredibly loud and what was it called?
Extremely loud and incredibly close.
Yeah, whatever it was. Extremely stupid and incredibly long. And
Appropriate.
and
Hey.
it is kind of the same thing. Like that trailer like almost made me like cry, and then the movie was just so horrible.
I do like the concept of this movie. It looks good.
Yes.
If it was the movie they promised it was.
That's exactly
tell
right.
me why it's not that movie.
Okay, so here's what happens.
Tell me.
His friends actually come off as massive a-holes because their attempts to bring him back to reality involve getting him legally declared incompetent.
What?
And
Basically
then
insane.
the metaphor of each of the concepts, death, time, and love, helping the member of Will Smith's associates that needs him or her the most,
Insane.
is kind of lame. And then there's all these plot holes. Joe, we'll talk a little bit off the air about some of this because I don't know if you'll ever end up seeing it, but
Well, I'm not sure now. Dang.
it was handled so bizarrely, and really wasn't the movie that the trailer made it seem like it was.
No.
Sucks.
But
Here we go.
look, I can't deny that everybody in this movie gives a good performance. I think Will Smith is good in this movie with what he has. I think Helen Mirren obviously is great. Winslet continues her streak of kind of blah performances. But like Norton's okay, Pena's very good. So most of that is intact. And I can't stress enough that the seedling of an idea for this movie was good. They just didn't know what at all to do with it. So Justin, what'd you think?
Okay.
My thought is you probably like it less than I did.
I'd say that statement's
Even though
fair.
I didn't have too many good things to say about it.
Well,
Tell me,
here we go. There are holiday movies. There are schmaltzy holiday movies. And then there's Collateral Beauty.
Bad movies.
In which the nicest thing I can say about it is thank goodness I have never done anything as morally reprehensible as our three protagonists in this movie.
Well,
I think he's probably the protagonist, though. Don't you?
Yeah, but we follow the other three probably.
They're the main... I mean, yeah, but yeah, Yes, they paint them as better than they are, for sure.
Oh my gosh, they are horrible, horrible human beings, to say the least. Now, to be fair, Dan's right. This was an idea that had some potential, kind of early 2000s The Family Man potential.
Yeah.
But
Oh, yeah, I like that movie.
good movie.
that said, I feel like there was only ever one of two outcomes. One surprisingly charming holiday movie, or a completely schmaltzy nightmare. To call this a schmaltzy nightmare would be the understatement of 2016.
Man.
There are plot holes in abundance. I can't really say anyone does a bad job, but they certainly don't help the script even remotely.
Helen Mirren does, kind of.
Just some of the most pretentious domino metaphors. Like someone just watched the big scene in V for Vendetta and said, "You know what? What if we made this an entire plot device for a Christmas movie?"
And even in V for Vendetta, that scene kind of doesn't work.
It's cool,
But you think about it for a second, and you're like, "Wow, that was pointless."
it was pointless, but it was at least cool.
It was cool. It was cool.
And to be fair, his setup is also kind of cool. But
True.
But I feel like if this isn't compelling evidence that Will Smith's star is fading,
Wow.
I don't know what is.
Hang it up.
Not necessarily hang it up, because let's be realistic, Suicide Squad 2 is inevitably coming.
True. And he was pretty good in that.
But I mean, he is far from the personality he used to be.
Not that likable in this.
And to put it politely, It's a Wonderful Life. It ain't.
Ooh.
It's not that he's not...
Uh-oh.
Ew.
Uh-oh. Is this something I've never heard before?
No, it's not something you've never heard before. It's not necessarily that he's not likable. Just his character
He's bad.
is poorly written,
Okay.
to be honest.
All right. Well, give me some perspective, though. This performance and character writing in relation to After Earth, Wanger.
Definitely not as bad as After Earth.
Okay. Not that bad.
Though
Wait,
he
yes,
gets
no.
he gets more to do in this than After Earth.
Well, yeah, he's confined to a chair in that horrible movie. Yeah, I mean, my main points for After Earth, I think, were more for the visuals than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Much like Rogue One, ironically.
Shoot.
But,
Not bad at all.
but yeah, I mean, like, see, here's where Justin and I really differ, though, not just on this movie, but on Will Smith.
Okay.
Because I really liked him in Concussion, and I know Justin had a lot of problems with that.
Tell the truth.
Tell the truth. I thought that was a good performance. Now, the movie didn't light up the box office. That's true.
Not quite, no.
But I thought that was a good performance. His performance here is passable.
He's asleep.
I think it's safe to say Will Smith's best
Uh-oh.
days in film are behind him. However, unlike Justin, I don't call for people to hang it up when their best days are behind them. Just maybe pick different projects, pick more interesting projects. I don't know. Read this script and be like,
so
what the H?
This is the movie that confirms Will Smith's star is definitely fading.
Well, it's his lowest wide opening ever.
Oof.
By a few million.
Oof.
So, yeah, his star is for sure fading. But, okay, here's one thing. Here's another thing this movie had going for it.
Kieran
There's two twists at the end. One is real dumb
One is monumentally
and
dumb.
obvious. But I have to say, the other one actually was pretty good. The one with a certain person.
I know what you mean.
The one at the very end, dumb.
I mean,
But I liked the other one. I thought
the other one wasn't bad, but I saw it coming.
Okay, well, I didn't. And if there was a moment of actual, like, emotional heft in this movie, it was there. Basically, because it only involved Will Smith and someone else, and not any of the business associates or love, time, death.
Yes.
So, in that regard, it really worked.
Huh.
So, I don't know. All right, so grade-wise, it's a C-.
This one's an F.
Holy
I figured.
shoot.
I figured.
Wow.
It's not an F, Joe.
I didn't think
It's not an F, and that's why that's why I don't think you should bother seeing it, because I don't think it would be in your bottom 10.
All right.
But
I think
This movie made me want to take a cold shower.
But it's lame.
I really like the
and
concept.
people are jerks.
Yes, people are
Yeah,
monumental.
we'll tell you in a minute after we talk about Manchester.
Okay.
But, all right, so finally is Manchester by the Sea. Justin's going to tell us about that.
Casey Affleck plays Lee Chandler, an average Joe plumber, barely scraping by when he learns of the passing of his brother, played by Kyle Chandler.
Not Ben Affleck?
Not Ben Affleck, sadly. As a result, Lee heads out to take care of his brother's affairs, primarily his son, played by Luke Hedges, while reflecting on the past he left behind so long ago. This movie is really the movie I wish The Descendants was going to be. By that I mean it's real.
Justin bad-mouthing The Descendants
It
already?
does have annoying teenage character, right?
Hang on. So while The Descendants had
Everything, and it was great, and it was an A+. Continue.
by virtue of Dan. No, all The Descendants had like 3 really complicated, well-written characters. I felt like the rest of the side characters were fairly one-dimensional and nowhere near as interesting as Alexander Payne was making them out to be. Manchester really does a good job of giving us these real situations, giving us these people that feel legitimately real, and handling the situation in a way that honestly doesn't feel like anything's being forced. It's not preachy. The answers aren't simple, and there is no all things come together happy ending in real life. That doesn't mean it's always the most fun to watch, but it keeps it honest and it keeps it interesting, even when sometimes what we're watching isn't always the most compelling stuff. Now, I think sometimes when the more artistic choices come into play, such as these intervals where we'll get exposition about Casey Affleck's character set to some sort of classical music piece, some of them work. Some of them give us a lot of context about who he is, why he is, and other aspects. Other scenes are meant to help shed more light on it and just kind of drag on for a bit too long for a movie that's dangerously close to being overlong. For 2 hours and 17 minutes, I was actually surprised at how well-paced this was. I think it does a very good job of establishing the rhythm. I think there's a lot of really good interplay between Affleck and Hedges. That I feel like Affleck really suffers because he mumbles like half of his lines.
Well, that's Affleck, though.
It is Affleck, and I also gave...
just kind of horsey whisper.
Which is pretty much his entire character in this movie.
In every movie he's in, he's kind of like, I don't know.
But no, I appreciated the honesty. I think the performances really do shine through. Affleck really does sell the average Joe character, which is why I think it was appropriate at times to be mumbling as much as he was.
He's done that before.
He has. Whether or not you can say that's him acting or him just playing Casey Affleck, you tell me. But in this one, I think it mostly worked. But alongside that, the other characters are interesting. I feel like Michelle Williams had a good start, but probably was benched for a little too much in the movie. They circle back on her.
I'll say.
They circle back on her, but...
to give her second billing is like...
a little generous.
It's like giving C-3PO second billing in the
Rogue One.
Rogue One.
Cameo.
Like, come on.
Wow.
She's in like 4 scenes of this 2:15 movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
But no, I think this was a really good slice of life movie. I'll be curious to see how much this one gets in terms of accolades for Oscar season.
Well, if Oscars love anything, it's a depressing movie. It's funny, though, like, the things you said that you wish The Descendants did that this movie did, I really do genuinely feel that way about The Descendants. Everything you said that this movie does, I'm like, yep, Descendants, check, check, check. Wow. So, to me, that's the better film. But I do like Manchester by the Sea a lot. The Casey Affleck mumbling was the character. I mean, that's like criticizing... Tom Hardy for mumbling in Lawless. It's like the dude. That's the dude. I mean, you know. Now, granted, I'm not real well versed in the Casey Affleck filmography. I've seen a few. It's interesting that you say, you know, is that Casey Affleck or is that the character? Because he hosted SNL last weekend, and I should have watched it because it would have been interesting to see him try and bust out of that Casey Affleck mode. So I'll have to, you know, see some of those clips. But so that part didn't bother me. The things that bothered me in the movie were, it is too long. I can agree that the length is not at least a little bit overlong by a good probably 10 minutes. The accents are a little hit or miss. It's not Michelle Williams' finest work. But the main problem I had with it was I didn't think that for the first maybe half hour or so, the flashbacks were executed particularly well. The one of the first flashbacks they do when Affleck goes to the hospital to deal with his deceased brother, they have him ride an elevator, which turns out to be down to the morgue to identify the body.
Yeah.
As he's in the elevator, they flash to another scene of the Kyle Chandler character first getting his diagnosis.
Yes. That was a weird scene.
It was a weird scene because guess what? Nothing was established yet. So I thought, oh, well, that's convenient. His one brother dies, and his other brother's in the same hospital, you know, getting a diagnosis. I didn't put together it was the same person until, you know, a good bit later. The connections between the characters is just not very well established, at least for maybe the first half hour, 45 minutes of the movie. So that was definitely a sticking point for me. Everything else, you know, I agree with it. It's very depressing, but it's also slice of life, you know, character study. The stuff with him and Hedges is really, really good acting. You know, I would not be surprised if either one of them picked up a nomination. I would be surprised if Michelle Williams picked up one. Did she get nominated for a Golden Globe for this?
That she might don't know.
And
it'd be a little
it's
questionable.
ridiculous. She's in 4 scenes of this movie.
Yeah.
And they just don't. She could almost be lifted out.
Just about.
Other than maybe the first scene or two that she's in with him. So yeah, I think it definitely had problems of the Oscar type movies that we've seen so far this year. You know, this is definitely good, and I know it'll get recognition, but you know, it's on the lower end. You know, when you have things like Moonlight in
Certainly.
the mix, for me. So, Joe, I do think you should see it because I think you would like
So
it.
you think I'll love it because it's depressing?
Well, I think that's the best part of it. The character development, you know, his character and just the life kicking in the balls kind of stuff is.
It's very raw.
It's very raw.
Well, I mean, I'll definitely
You know,
check it out before the year's over for sure.
Absolutely.
So for me, Manchester gets an A-.
Solid A for me.
Okay. Well, that is the show, one of the last of the year. So you can check us out on the Facebook group, which is Film Fanatics with an exclamation point, the Twitter feed at Film Fanatics Pod. And Joe, let's talk to you briefly since we didn't hear from you these last couple movies. You've got your Rogue One review in the car immediately following the seeing of it.
Yes, very detailed review for many people.
Yes.
Cramped in my car.
And cold.
And very cold, but we had enough energy to talk and keep ourselves warm.
Yeah, so if you want to hear even more expanded thoughts from Joe and the gang over there on Merlin Reviews, check that out in addition to all of the other great stuff going on there. So, all right, well, thanks for listening, and we'll see you back here next time.